Y'all, Heru Radio. I'm your host. I said it to the kids. My brother found this time. It's been a long episode. Just got started. A lot of stuff going on. And just want to keep everybody abreast of. A lot of things basically on the upswing in terms of how we are being perceived, what that perception is in the world, getting progressively iller. And one of those things. But as we are now in this pseudo-Aquarian period, we're getting ready to pass into this Aquarian period, a lot of stuff is getting ready to switch up. So we need to be as direct as possible because it's very easy to get things twisted. Seeing that Shannon's fade is a lot of duplicitous, double-sided shit going on. A lot of double speak, a lot of double talk, a lot of unresolved things coming to the surface, but also piggyback behind unrequited emotions, things like that, that are really based upon how you perceive the things that have happened to you. Look at the series of events in your life and start to pay attention to them or look at them as if you was researching a book on history or whatever. A lot of us don't do that. A lot of us don't really apply the same aspect of research to ourselves. And a lot of us think that we know what other people are and manifest as based upon what our experiences are. And it's not always the case. And we're also at a stage where we not only get confronted by these things, but we also get put in situations to have to manifest it almost instantaneously. You know what I'm saying? Which then can cause issues amongst those of us who are striving to be seen and heard. The universal appearance of these things is starting to bubble up in the interpersonal relationships where you're probably seeing it start the most. You know what I mean? Namely those people around you, namely those people who are allegedly are your friends and whatever, but it's always something that doesn't quite feel right. Those relationships are the ones that potentially are the most toxic. So you have to protect yourself. You have to start to do the knowledge, man. And don't go on what people are telling you they are. Go by what it is you see and hear, witness them being and doing. Not allow yourself to be taken advantage of by people who are weaker than you. But the only strength that they have is the ability to be heartless when it comes to manipulating and using people. Keep it extra real and extra funky as to how personal this is for me, you know, and to show you that regardless to how much you know, how much you study, what it is that you put yourself on the path to get everything, we are all still held accountable and tested by the same mundane shit that everybody else is, man. Don't think that these people who are living out of control lives, $1 million and all of that, living plus and all of that, them people is in more of a prison than you. Biggie said it correct. The more money you have, more problems. You know what I'm saying? And unfortunately, the biggest problem in this society and world that we're dealing with is the accumulation or the lack of accumulation of money, man. A lot of the issues, a lot of the problems, all that shit is stemming from that. Case in point, in my own personal life, 2 years ago, we was on a show. I told you guys about how I was attacking my mother's funeral and all this other shit. Seemed like longer than he's been dead for about a year. So I would say it's a year of change. Because Dark Continental was 2010. So specifically speaking, 2 years ago, I told everybody who told me that I was attacked at my grandmother's funeral. Basically set up by my mom, that role with her. And the guy who got to do it was an ex-best friend. So it got to a point where it was like, ritualistically, they created a situation where they were trying to replace my energy with this guy. And because me and the guy at one time was cool, it was all good. But what I started to see was that all of this started to accumulate and burgeon up into this almost ingratiated relationship with him and this person. So when I started to see that, me as an Aries with a double Scorpio, I'm going to detach. There's a part of me, and those people who are Scorpios or those people who are Sagittarius or people who have a aspected moon in that way, you can sometimes foresee the demise of relationships way before they happen. And when I started to witness that demise and whatever with my mother, I began to slow essence of detachment from when I was 16, from 16, 17. I stopped looking at her like somebody who was really going to hold me down. You know what I'm saying? Now, this don't mean that I don't love her and she don't love me. It just means that based upon different decisions and agreements and things like that were made or that she made or whoever made, when I didn't go along with whatever that was supposed to be, that's when it became an issue. So this whole thing, this deterioration of this relationship began from then and I guess culminated at the point 2 times. One point when my great-grandmother, the night of her funeral, and then that turned into a big family thing in which me and my mother got into it. And the first threat was put out there. Then by the time my grandmother, Dolores Brooks, the dead, she went through it. She wound up, her funeral was the catalyst in which the attempt was made. You know what I'm saying? Now, you know what I mean? Instances like this that I'm speaking about this in my own personal situation because I really don't have nothing to hide pertaining to the situation. From the risk in doing this public speaking or whatever, I learned that whatever's going on with you or whatever, you can't really, once you get out there, you can't really be scared or to whatever to go into it because this is part of it. And sometimes people need to hear the situation that you are going through because it will then bring about what's going on with them. Give maybe some clarity as to that situation. So in that, I never was in a situation to resolve any of that with her due to the fact that I can't trust her. And when it comes to not trusting your mother, this will create a backlash or whatever in the rest of your life. And for years, you know what I'm saying, you go through the stage of trying to figure that out. The problem, though, is that a lot of times figuring that out comes at the point of you accepting the fact of what it is you cannot change. And once you accept that certain things that have come to pass are that way for a specific reason, there's a certain freedom that comes with that when you let that go. But a lot of people can't let certain shit go because they feel like they have a better insight to your situation than you do. Or because you built with them or you created situations with them that you're in a situation, that you're in a position to somehow not see what's happening to you. Yet still, all of this is really coming about because of the fact, like my family, like many other black families in society, we have gone through a state in which our family has been disenfranchised. We've been disingenuous with one another. And we found ourselves in a position where we literally just don't trust each other. You know what I mean? However, a lot of us want to act like that's not what's going on, or we want to act like everything is rosy and red for everything else. Do I have to get into the diagnosis first? That should be.
Know it's something crazy. These women exist right there on Facebook. These women have friends.
It's not just women. It's
well,
men.
I say women because the women are the ones that are all like, it's supposed to be that they befriend each other to keep this illusion, like.
Right, but let me finish as to what I was saying with the story, as to why it's like this right now. And it's like this in our families, in our communities, because we gave up an aspect of ourselves, our pursuit of happiness, just get money. When we started focusing solely on the materialistic aspect of commerce in the world, we began to deteriorate as a people. That's just the truth. How is it we come from a place where diamonds are alluvial? Alluvial means that the diamonds, you don't have to dig them. They're just on the ground. How is it we come from places like that and we don't have no damn money? How is it that somebody who don't even live in that country can go there, buy up the land rights, and then force people, if they steal or try to take the diamonds that are alluvial, that are basically theirs, they get their hand cut off or get locked up and go to jail. Meanwhile, they take that same diamond, mark up the price, and then hoard them, and then send them to Europe so that way everybody could basically get some conflict on, get their conflicts on. To the point where regular diamonds right now are tainted. Everybody wants a conflict diamond, meaning the diamonds with blood on it. But in my family, all of this started coming about once I became the primary male. The oldest male in the family, according to the traditional aspect of our family, is the one that is there to basically lead the family into the next epoch. However, black manhood is always challenged in this society, challenged to the point where it's like you always got to show and prove whatever it is you're doing. And everybody as a black man want to tell you how you feel about shit. Everybody as a black man want to have an idea of what it means and what it understands and shit is, what it is you are. You know what I'm saying? Everybody got it, including other black men. Like I said, I was cool with this guy in particular I'm talking about. We was friends. We was in a rap group together. But once I seen that he had eyes for my then baby mother, it was like, nah, I can't miss this dude. And then when I confront you and then you act like that's not what's going on, okay, cool. But then what happens is it's not enough. So what happens is we have to take it further. So the further now comes, like I said, with the funeral thing. But what it really is and what it really stems from is the fact that certain monies and things was left for peoples in the family, going all the way back to when my great-grandma died. But my mother or whoever else that she may be working in tandem with, her handler or whoever else, don't want to free up. She want to keep it all and administrate it to everybody how she wants. You understand? Now, I ain't make her do that. This is a choice that this grown woman is making for herself. But I'm using my situation and my example to show and prove to the people that it don't matter how much you know. It don't matter how close you are. This material world will corrupt. And those people who want power can and will be corrupted depending on how far they want to go to get it. And it don't matter if it's your mother, your brother, your sister, your father. It don't matter. That's why, like I said, historically speaking, we have to go within ourselves and look within ourselves to find out what is the trigger for us. What's the reason why? Like, this little shit that we go through in our lives and we don't even realize why. Like, certain people don't like tomatoes. How come you don't like tomatoes? If you're not allergic or whatever. How come you don't like broccoli? How come you don't like this? How come you got to sleep with a light on all the time? How come you can't sleep at night? What's going on with you? But we don't do any comparative research with how we feel about ourselves. Because unfortunately, some of us don't feel like we're that important. So if I'm living in an era where somebody could birth me, but because I don't go along with whatever situation or whatever they want, then what? this person now has the right to send somebody to try to force me back on the track that they want? A lot of times, it's not people and enemies coming to your life not to stop you from what you're doing, but to stop you from what you're going to do, from the things that you're going to bring forth into the world. Because the potential is the future, and the future is 10 seconds from now. So it's always a little bit out of grasp. It's always a little bit out of reach. So you got to move and you got to strive yourself forward to get it. Counseling somebody today, and we was going through it, and we were doing the research, and they were saying that the family court, which we said on the tape, the fallacy of family court, for those people who have never seen it. Family court nationwide is providing 30. At the time I did the tape, it was 24%. Now it's 35% of annual state budget. 31%. That is a lot of people, yo. 31% of all people right now is in family court in America. It's a lot. And nobody's looking at this as a specific epidemic dealing directly with us because of things like integration and things like that. We're not looking at how we've been talk about it, but we don't really look into it. How we've been affected, why the situation is the way it is, and how is it that the divorcee generation between the time of integration and now has jumped over 55%. Prior to integration, black families was together. Once the whole migrant stuff started happening, once the sharecropping started happening, all of these were ploys to get black males out of the house. These things were systematic and instrumental in the deterioration of our actual family structure, in which then we had to adopt other aspects of what family was to be, in terms of the European aspect, as well as the other things that go with being, quote-unquote, in a relationship in this country. As time began to progress when it came to the overall movement itself of us as a people, migratory-wise, we start going up to the north because they had all of the, quote-unquote, industrial jobs. And due to the somewhat lax aspect of Jim Crow, we allowed ourselves, well, not us, but our ancestors, those people from those eras, allowed themselves to believe that there was some sort of progress going on. One thing Dr. King said before he died, one of the last features that they don't show on Black History Month or any of the other shows, they used to show it on Gil Noble show, like it is. I don't know if that's still on. But one thing he said in particular was, don't let them take your manhood. Now, we usually think that pertains to rape, which it does. But rape, in any event, is really a attack against the feminine principle of whoever is being preyed upon in that instance. So whether it's a man doing it to a man or a woman doing it to a woman or whatever, it's always an attack for a need to imprint a traumatic aspect into womb space. So as these things started to become more and more of everyday life, these things, or unfortunately, these became the things that society would use to create perception that we don't know how to take care of ourselves. Because that's what integration basically told them. Because in their worldview, if we've been beating you and whipping you and lynching you and killing you and raping your women and selling your babies and eating you and all this type of stuff, and then y'all want to still integrate with us, that means you are not who we thought or we know you to be. So you can't be up under us. And essentially we took on a second-class citizenship. Prior to Dr. King coming, there was a whole other aspect where people were really, or right before he was going, they were going to take him out. They were going through a big thing with the start of his in terms of his agenda. And so it started to become more about poor people and poor folk rights. And then once he started talking about the war, that was pretty much a wrap. So based on that situation, it created a functional aptitude, meaning a reasonable assumption that we were not in our shoes in this state. You know what I'm saying? But that's a perception. Like sometimes Selena will be in the back, she'll be talking. Some people will perceive that she's yelling, heard or whatever. But the thing is, Selena has a deep voice. So anything that she says, because she speaks on her voice, is going to come off to certain people who don't speak on their voice or who are not direct. It's going to come off a little bit intimidating or even confrontational at a certain point. And she don't even be there. It's not that. But if you perceive that, you see, then that's what it is. And because people don't do their research, because people don't use common sense a lot of times, they want to actually go with the negative perception because a lot of it is easier. It's hard. Think about, like, we don't think about little stuff sometimes. Like, we don't think about what the sun feels like on people who don't have none skin. Or we don't think about anything outside like that. And when we do, or we do the opposite, where that's all we think about. Other people's perception, other people's external views of ourselves, external views of our lives, how we should be living it, what we should be doing with it, what nation we should be a part of, what people we should be following, what interest we should be doing, what this, what that. And it's like, it's overload. We're going into the Aquarius phase in a couple of days. So that's going to bring in a whole nother level of emotional upheaval. You know what I'm saying? So like I said, in my personal situation, in my life, I'm going through a situation where I'm coming to grips with the fact that the people who nurtured us coming up had other agendas. And certain friends that I had coming up had other agendas. And once I didn't fit into those agendas, there's a certain pattern of behavior that comes along in which, people just stop talking. Or, it becomes a thing where it's like, instead of talking to me, it becomes talking about things like that. But again, I'm just an example or public example of the same drama that's playing out in all of your lives every day. Because you're dealing with this every day. You got to figure out who's hating on you at the job, who's hating on you in the school, who's hating on you on the train, who's hating on you in the car, who's hating on you in the thing. And when I say who's hating, I mean you have to be in a state of self-preservation. Because at any point, it could be on anywhere in this place. We don't even want to accept the fact that we are in World War III, or they're saying World War III, but I would say World War V right now. WW1 and 2 was 1 and 2. WW3 was the Cold War. WW4 was the war, the quote-unquote ideological war. the war on drugs, the war on terror, the war on crime, right? Now, we basically about to go into the grand war or the big war, which they already in. They already choosing sides, and they've already done it. The other day, there was a tanker, a cruise ship that sank. Everybody's like, oh, this is the third time this ship company has sank. But everywhere they have had a boat sink, there's been some sort of political intrigue or something going on. First time it ran adrift, allegedly, was in Egypt, right before, I think it was 2010. It ran adrift there. 3 people died. Then it ran adrift off the coast of Turkey. And a couple of people died over there. 3 people died in that. Then in this one now, this is the third time, 3 people died in this, allegedly. But, of course, the thing is going to go up. But they keep reporting the 3. So this company, who owns this boat system or these cruise ships or whatever, has a pattern of killing people on the high seas or being involved in nautical tragedy. First thing people started doing was talk about the Titanic. In time of boat sink, everybody started talking about the Titanic. So on the news, when they said, with haunting memories of the Titanic, whenever they use that, what that says to me, to modern people, they're looking at that, historically, this is a boat sinking. But when I see that, or they hear them say that on CNN, I say, the Jesuits did it. Or they evolved somehow. Because that's who was involved with the initial Titanic. When you do the research. There's cardinals and bishops all there that day, but none of them got on the boat. They took pictures of everybody getting on the boat, though. And really, the whole thing was a hit to get rid of the aspartame. Because the aspartame was charting the boat all that time, and they got rid of them that way. See, whenever they take out big people, like people in they thing, they got to take a bunch of stuff around them with them. You know what I mean? So, like, if they want to get rid of, a big low-level dude, like I said, like pastor or whatever, it's not. If it was straight-up government trying to get rid of them, it would be a straight-up cold hit, but they meaning that they would just kind of run up on them and do them with poison or like they do in the movies or whatever. But when it's some internal shit, like some internal, like, quote-unquote elite type of situation, that's when they take out the big guns. So in the movie Conspiracy Theory, Gibson was talking about when they killed the guy Harriman under the Harriman building, there was a flood. And when they autopsied Harriman, they found water in his lungs. So essentially, the flood was the precursor or the foundation for the ritual of him also being killed or dead. So there's a method to how these things happen because everything is done ritualistically because this is their religion. Sacrificial murder is a part of the religion. You know, the god of the religion is money. You know what I'm saying? So, specifically speaking, they create these situations where they kill people like that. So they're saying that, this company, when they interviewed some of the pastors, one of the pastors said the people were helping themselves off the boat because the actual workers and these people, all of them seemed like they was trying to lead people into places where they were drowning and killed. He said, I felt like the workers was trying to kill them. Not to mention that the captain jumped ship, which in some countries is illegal. You can get hanged for that. Like if the ship go down, the captain got to go with the ship. That's why you're the captain. Or at least wait till everybody gets off. The captain's supposed to be the last one on and off. So all of this is to say that the cover story, is that they went aground. But where did they go aground at? They went aground in Rome. Who are the chief operators or promoters of the cruise line? France and Germany. You know what I mean? France and Germany also have big stakes in what's going on in Libya. then France and Germany are also hooked up in the NATO thing, specifically to go into Libya and start to shut down everything from Morocco to Egypt. So in that, they need to do that because they need to function how they're going to deal with the Iran problem. So they need to, basically, they want to shut everything in the upper Middle East, with so-called upper Middle East down, Europe down, and then use the Afghanistan, the Khyber Pass to basically get into Iran, Syria, Russia, everywhere else. The play against them now, you're talking about a Cold War or a war, which is coincidentally going on at the same time that Turkey just came out of an earthquake that set them back, but also Turkey was floating in flotillas and all of that was trying to break into Israel during the whole Gaza thing. All of this at a time in which everybody in Gaza is pushing to become a state, of which now the United States can't really support, because if they support the Palestinians, they want Palestine to become a state, but if they do that, that puts them in a negative relationship with Israel, which then would mean Israel would then have to hook up with China or the United States to protect itself from Iran. Because if the United States attacks Iran, Iran is going to attack Israel, China will then attack, which then will mean the United States will attack Pakistan, China will attack United States and Sudan and Nigeria. And this will basically force the Russians, who already have 8 ships, Kula-class torpedoes that's on the outskirts of the country, you know what I'm saying, to go online. So all of this, not to mention the fact, again, that all of their bases and stuff get blown up. Underground bases getting blown up. The perception is not good. Yet everything we're talking about, even though it's true, you can go online and look up everything I'm saying, but it's still not going to be put forth in the mainstream like that, because they still have to proceed as if everything in the government is kind of like the same. But the government that this guy has instituted is a transitional government. You know what I'm saying? What he's going to do, or what they're going to do after 2012, is going to be something else. So I said at first, I don't think that they don't have nobody who's going to beat this guy. So that means then that the strategy is probably not to win. The strategy is to take over the Senate. If that's the case, then that means anything he wants to do, they could do so. Now, playing out on the metaphysical level above the interplane countries are the ancient deities, spiritual entities that occupy the government, or those countries' governments invoked to turn them into countries during the Age of Revolution, and then ignited them to become republics. Yet the ancestral power of the land and the people is still there. So you have the deities like Ahura Mazda, or Zoroaster, or Marduk, or Tiamat, even due to the Persian Sumerian connection, Moorish connection. They are now warring against the moon gods of Libya, or Punt, who are being taken over, as well as the ancestral deities, the gods of Kemet, of which Egypt is in, as well as Syria. Turkey, which was called Phygria back when we was running it under the Osmanli, that is a influential ally of Syria and Russia. So an attack on them, you know what I'm saying, is now an attack on Allah, you see, as well as the gods of Syria. like Merceret and Minerva, Miracle. All of these are playing out at the same time where you have United States soldiers firing guns with Bible verses on them. M16s with Bible verses etched into the barrel. Not that they did themselves, this is how the guns are issued. The correspondent reality in this now is that they've also, according to Reuters, have opened up talk to accept contracts for specific companies now to come over and man the community centers, quote unquote, aka camps. So they took the bid to build them up. The whole debacle with China essentially was that China initially paid for all of the contracts or the rights to do it, but they took the money that the Chinese paid to do that and then started flipping espionage on them with their money. See what I'm saying? So all of the budget cuts, all of the extraneous spending and all of that, all of this is to keep rewashing the money while they figure out what they're going to do with the EU. Because now that they've been fractured, they've been left open. They don't know who's who. They don't really trust. They never really did. So on some levels they're working together. On some levels they're warring against each other. On some levels they're working against. On some levels they're supporting us. But in every level, it's still the same occupying mind state. So instead of us talking about things like reconstitution, we need reconstituting the government or the government. That would alleviate a lot of instances. But they, meaning the powers that be, have assumed the fact that if we've abandoned it, then we must know how to reconstitute. But nowadays, when you say reconstitution, people think you're talking about the Constitution. And the Constitution has nothing to do with that. The Constitution, as a founding document of the Federal Republic, again, was just evidence of the tax shelter created, the Declaration, the Bill of Rights, really, stuff that's dealing with us. And using of the Declaration, you can really get into the Constitution. It's only a preamble to a separate article that really paints to us as the true republic. But American historical scholars take the assumption they don't deal with the political circumstance of the people that they refer to as the founding fathers. When they say that they was paying money to the king, they don't make it seem like what it really was, which was slavery. They don't call Washington and Jefferson as slaves. They call them colonists. But the colon where colonist comes from represents the part that cleans out all the decay. You know what I'm saying? If you look at the 13 colonies in which they were positioned, shaped, how they looked, even looked like the salt, and how they were on the edge, the very edge, because they were landlocked, dry docked into the harbor. They could only go by who gave them permission to go, because they were all esquires, which means that, again, they served and they were lawyers, which in the Republic was against the law. You could be a lawyer. Because at that time, the lawyer's primary function was to settle estate as well as to mitigate foreign ransom. Once the Whig system, WHIG, Whig Party was instituted, that's when you started to see all of the people with wearing the white wig that were symbolic representations of Nemesis crown worn by the pharaoh. You look at the design, it's basically the same thing. Only thing they don't have no adornment. But it was made out of lamb, but all of those wigs were made from lamb's wool. The same wool that would be made from the tunic and stuff of the pharaoh. It's also like the hood of the cobra. So the sounded principles things stuff like that. So like when we were talking last week about the destruction of Havilah, aka Arabia, Sabia, due to first the Arabic, well at the time they weren't called Arabic, so we would call them at the time the Philistine and Mamluk adoption of the altered Quran 200 years after the publication and the ascension of the original. You know, they were dealing with that primary function. And at that time, it was really about locking down the premise that they could have a nation that would be a representation of them as a people, because they had reached the level in which they had, through the tutelage or whatever of the Abyssinians, being that Yemen and Arabia was basically a colony of Abyssinia up until the say 1300s, and even maybe further back than that, going all the way up to Rasalula, Rasalula, before the ascendancy of His Majesty Selassie. So, being used as forms of war, they eventually adopted a system where they could come up. They did. And we allowed them land to be able to conquer or whatever. But based on that, they did exactly what other races did, was then try to force us to adopt the doctrine that we gave them. But it was the doctrine that had been altered again 200 years later by Muhammad Musalimiyat, the liar. This eventually led to a Moorish or high intellectual priesthood that began to travel or go back to the ancient land that they had already seeded and started to bring about the knowledge that we would be dealing with today. So you have the Dogons, the high priest of the Dogons, the high priest of the Shante, the Yoruba, Igbo, the Moors, all of these guys, the Dinka, all of them realizing that they were now going, due to their own political infighting, were now subjected to the onslaught of the former slaves, who were now leveraging land by war, by using the same political tactics that the Moors was using against themselves. So it's really, for students of history, it's really prudent then to, when they use certain words and hear certain terms and structures, ideological structures that deal with the premise of what is going on today, it's all predicated on the dissolution of nations, nation states, and peoples, and the forced redesignation of those. on a consistent multilateral, multinational, trilateral position. So the coming wars are just reflections of what's going on. So in my opinion, the whole shift, that's all part of the battle that's going on, the subtle war that's going on off the coast of Libya and the straits, around the straits of Hercules, as well as going into the Caspian, where you got the Russians and the Turks basically protecting the Syrians from water invasion from the United States, sending little Delta teams in there to act as snipers, which then the Western media was blame on the Syrian government. And really, the Syrian government is doing what it's been doing, but they ain't shooting its own people with snipers. If they're going to do that, they're just going to attack them. Why would the government use snipers to kill its own people when its government could just go in with its own people in uniform and do the same thing? Because they want regime change, which is understandable because this is all really about the positioning of the world, the new positioning of the NASA for the new quote-unquote world, where two superpowers basically got to deal with waning power of the American empire. Just as Rome, just as Kemet. Because all of those things are artifices based on belief and ideology that take away from the strength of the individual's purpose. It's different now than it was back in the day because now it's all synthesized at once. So again, you just figuring stuff out with your computer. You put your computer in front of your child is opening up and going into all different types of worlds on it. They don't even know. So that's how you know. That's an example of how you know you built pyramids and all of that. You just forgot. It just came a point in our genetic memory where certain memory was taken out based upon whatever trauma was in, or whatever DNA was extracted. That DNA, that 580 years, can be brought up into a DNA ladder. So that can be 580 meters, kilometers, yards of DNA taken out of all of us and then applied to the greater molding of what Anglo civilization was supposed to be. And it's been played out in everything. Like I said, it's Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith, a.k.a. Adam Weishaupt. Adam Smith is the reason why they're not using no gold, or they had to hoard all the gold. Because he said any country that had gold was susceptible to takeover based on other countries bribing with gold. So if there was no gold and everything was based on mark and letter, things would be easier to manage. But again, this was all thought developing out of a bourgeoisie, amalgamated black upper class that was seeking to secure favor from the darker side of the family to bring more of the lighter strain in. So between the time of the birth of Francis Bacon to the death of Alessandro de' Medici of the Medici dynasty, you see the decline and deterioration of Moorish families due to sex and the promulgation of slavery and misogyny. That's why when you read the Moorish works of the Shakespeare Company, like the Bible, first and foremost, but then getting into the sonnets like Macbeth, you know what I'm saying, the Moor from Scotland, or Taming of the Shrew, you know what I mean? That's all about every movie that you've seen with Julia Roberts acting like the chick that just has been so hurt that she's just really a jerk, and she chooses to open up her heart and give it to God. All of that is Taming of the Shrew. any story that you see that has a guy that's fighting or whatever, and he has to find his birthright or whatever, that's either Hamlet or Macbeth. So again, this is your story. Merchant of Venice. That's all about the Jews trying to create an industry for themselves by isolating people based upon how they were treated under the old Moorish Empire. Even when you read the Bible, where Solomon wrote, "Look upon me, I am dark but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem. Look upon me with favor, for I have blessed you with peace. For I have been blessed with the essence of the Most High, for the Most High God." These are all allegorical triggers that were put in place with literature to allow us now to seep into that aspect of understanding within ourselves. So everything then, because everything is slanted towards that, the object now has to become the subject, because we live in a reverse world in which the society or our view is predicated upon being equal with everybody else's view. So when we agree for equal rights, we agree to support the rights of those people who would oppress our rights. You understand? When you agree for equal schooling, you agree to have your children taken from your neighborhood and taken into a whole nother neighborhood, which would then inspire your children to move out of their neighborhood to live in a neighborhood that they're more comfortable with, where they feel seemingly they could be free. But once they actually go there and live amongst Caucasian people for a certain amount of time, they find that they have to adapt and become the black person that those Caucasian people know. And yes, a lot of people, some people, or a few people, or many people, whoever, who don't view race. And that's great. Yet, the people who do view race like that are the ones creating situations and police departments and armies and weapons and biochemical nuclear transponders that attack people like us every day. Again, you'll never see a national referendum against brutality the way that you would see a RICO Act or something like that. Because people believe, or what the media purport is, that these instances are unrelated, that they're all individual acts of sick police officers, when really it's the system of which produces these types of people that does that, because the individual who goes to become that initially may go in for great reasons, but the system itself is flawed. Therefore, whatever good or whatever they want to produce is not necessarily what should be or can be, because the operating matrix of the system is to prey and kill people like us. Not because I think all police or white people are racist. It's just that most of the quote-unquote elite, look like this. If they allegedly have had 44 presidents and only one of them is black, how is it I'm praised for saying that they like their society being led by white men? Even though they know these same white men are the ones that's really destroying the whole planet. Whether they're Jewish or American or Russian or French, they all work for the same intelligence agency. Essentially, all intelligence agencies are really just one big intelligence agency. They all act like they work against each other, and they do, and they hide stuff from each other and kill each other's agents. They do all of that because that's the justification for them to exist. Because their pretense, like the motto of the CIA is, the truth shall set you free. That's the motto when you walk in the lane. You know what I'm saying? So every Born Supremacy movie, every Harrison Ford Jack Wagner movie or whatever. It's always the same story. You know what I'm saying? You notice now in a lot of movies, they always breaking into Langley now. Like every other movie, they break into CIA because CIA is not in Langley anymore. They've been trying to move that until somebody nuked the passage underground that allegedly they was trying to get to. But again, all of this is allegedly what they refer to as black news, meaning it's not real because it's quote-unquote conspiracy. Yet, if Reuters and the New York Times and you have people on YouTube showing you this every day, how is it that it's being slanted? The guy sitting in office, he went before Congress and asked them to give him more power. He went and asked them, say, yo, we need to give more the ability to set up a swifter and a more efficient government. You need to give me this power to do it. They haven't voted on it yet, but if they pass the NDAA, why wouldn't they pass that? For those people who don't know what the NDAA, which is interesting because that's the acronym-wise that's synonymous with Noble Jew Ali, Allah, at the same time that they declared Moorish American Week in America the first time in history, well, again, since the 20s. Praising to Allah and all of those wars that were helpful and successful in making that happen. But again, you know, you got people like Ron Emanuel and people signing this point, which is great because he's the mayor, but we know how he got in there. We know who he really is. You know he's from Saudi. Like, we know that. Like, you have foreign operatives running and acting as president. Chavez came out. Now he's dealing with the Russians. Soon he started talking about that Hawk was used with Haiti, Chile, and all of that, because when they hit him they hit Venezuela with the earthquake during that period is when they hit him during the whole commotion. They had an implant hit him with the UAP, and then he wound up with cancer. But he freaked it and went to Cuba, and in there he started releasing interviews and talked about how they did it, who was involved with it, and all of that. And systematically at a time when Venezuela now is being looked at as another point of interest by them. But if they mess with them, they would try to slip it through Guatemala. Coincidentally, the United States just gave them $117 million in damages for the Tuskegee experiments they was running on the black Guatemalan people, indigenous people, 3 months ago. So these things are coming into view as a political scope in which we will see the effect in the form of higher gas prices towards the summer, regime change in one of the 3 countries at conflict right now, and a proposal for unilateral acceptance of a place they probably will call it, trying to call Palestinian or Palestine, which would be the nation state carved from Israel, which would lead to the decline and the removal of everything. But see, in the Bible, if you read Revelation, it says that when peace comes to Israel, that's when the beast will make himself known and everything will basically start to go to hell in a gasoline cart. So even though it'll cause a war, remember the guy bringing this is got a peace prize. So since he wants the peace prize, he also killed 2 major quote-unquote Arabic leaders. He stabilized about 5 different nations, bankrupted the whole country, and at the same time, looked great doing it. You know what I'm saying? Pardoned the top, but brutality. You know what I'm saying? A cop for police brutality. And what else? Injected itself in a rap beef with Kanye West. You know what I'm saying? All the while, the real people running the show, the principals committee, Petraeus, Clinton, you know, the other ones, the demons from the old regime, you see what I'm saying, are the same because it's the same entity using the same host body to facilitate the movement of the overall satanic agenda to corrupt the soul of humanity to the point of utter and total desolation, which is the last fourth or stage of empire, which will then destroy any hope of a genetic regeneration or revival, which will then create a somatic zombie-like state people that they would want to rise or make the best that they could of it. In which then that's the perfect crop that they want. Somebody that's so brutalized by the world that they can't fight back. The ultimate porcelain program, because you have the programming method of MK Patriot, which is the whole homeland aspect, meaning a whole, you know, everyday indoctrination, merging with the MK Naomi and MK Ultra, which is the drugs and the racial strife, which then promotes a universal acceptance of the world as it is, and that it can only get worse instead of better, which then flips the mind of the original people to adopt manners in which they reject themselves and adopt the manners of the oppressor. So, unfortunately, whether we realize it or not, like if you look at any other woman in the world, they wear wigs, they wear weaves, but they are not seen necessarily as inferior as black women who do that. The Koreans and the Hindus that have made millions off of just black women alone, and will continue to do so. So it's not to dwell on, you know, perms and all of that, but what we're talking about now, more than it being a personal thing, now it's being used and seen by even white people as a political agreement to accepting the denationalization and the de-designation of black males and black children by black women. Like, why is Chris Rock making a movie called Black Good Hair? Because he has a daughter now and he wants to do the house to it because his wife is sperm. But what that says to the physical world, see what I'm saying, is that you've been colonized. It's kind of like taking your crown off. Whether you like it or not as an individual, I'm not talking about that. And there's no judgment in you doing it or not. But it is to say that it is being used as a justification for more bleaching creams and better perms and straighter perms. We're making it more and more. When morticians and people in the morgue are pulling back black women's scalp, cadavers of black women's scalp, it's been rotted green to the brain. So what did that do to that poor woman over the 50 or 20 or 30 years of her doing that to herself to look like somebody else? The justification is, no, I just like straight hair. That's fine. But it's still, that's your perception. It still doesn't change the greater perception of everyone else. And then black men don't encourage black women to be that, because now their turn is there. They in the beauty parlor. They getting it. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not talking about a man grooming himself, because I was taught as a gentleman, as a man growing up, to be a gentleman, you have to have pride in your appearance. Somewhere having pride in your appearance became metrosexual or you're dead. As if all men have to have snot and be some sort of Neanderthal seen as a man. And then when you adopt that person up, you wind up in jail, you wind up beat up by police, you wind up being misrepresented by yourself, your community, your woman. This is my perception of what's going on, but it's not jaded on me trying to get someone to see things a certain way. I'm just saying this is how I'm seeing it based upon the data that I'm representing. That data is the basis of the life that has been accumulated from the life that we've been living. Like I said, in my personal case, this is playing out, and I'm seeing the aspect of this play out in my family. Understand? I'm seeing the destruction of the Moors. I'm seeing the play between Iago and Othello, and them trying to make me be some Othello. Only thing I ain't no white. I see the whole Macbeth thing with the three witches. You know, I was playing out in terms of my mother and the two women I had to face. As a natural historian, I would be a fool if I did not see cultural and spiritual parallels of something that is playing out in my physical life. That's a living history. Based upon whatever was not reconciled in my family bloodline, I am the first one in my line that's conscious of all of this, enough to share it with y'all. Once you have accepted who and what you are, what you're here to do, regardless to what it is, man, you don't have to fear and you don't have to feel like you can't express. And that's what was being imposed based on me, or I felt being like imposed on me, or feeling like I had to do that by not being able to share the experience. I ain't going to share everything, but in instances that affect me that are not only symbolic representations, but are may directly influence how either I'm perceived or the community at large is perceived, it's my duty to let you know. Because if it really is a village, then we all have to be witnesses for each other, because we can't rely on our individual families. Some of us can't do that, don't have the luxury of that. To rely on our families, God forbid something happens to us, for people to tell the truth about who and what we were and are. You'll have families where you spent your whole life being a Muslim or whatever. When you die, they try to bury you a Christian just to spite you. This is your blood. So again, I ain't no different than anybody else, because we're all suffering from the effects of destabilization of our empire, our government, our nation, our culture, our vexology. And first and foremost, the de-unification or the disunification of us within ourselves. The reality of which we have been at times burdened to deal with, based upon our lack of support in a greater economy, a greater community, a greater exercise of national understanding that can lead to a unified understanding of nationality, which will then lead to an aspect of which we all can agree that this is a good way for us to get where we're going. We've already been recognized as dissident. So if you can have a Moorish American Day, you can have a Kemet Day, you can have a Marcus Garvey Day, you can have I think there was a Marcus Garvey Day when I was young. And I think about Marcus Garvey. But Sorry Day, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Same way that you have all these other nationalities, all the different aspects of us black people that have a representation like that. It don't always have to be the ass out shaker carnival. It don't always have to be Juve. It could be a parade of us just the ultimate in all of that for us. Let them want to be like you again. Because they do in secret already, and now it's even in the open. This chick Chelsea Ham I was watching one day on TV, this jerked up Jew chick was talking about, I really love when black people are themselves and are really black, authentically black. You got white people, they know. They niggas know that we played ourselves. They know. And they judging us by our woman. And our woman judging us by how they say we are. Not all of them, but enough where there's not enough, like Queen Valeria Elbay, people like that, Joe Cooper. These people are supposed to be millionaires. These people are supposed to be like Dr. Oz and the rest of these people. These black people who are let you listen to tapes and all of that, or watch the tapes and all of that, go on YouTube and see niggas or whatever, and watch tapes and they want to incorporate that and say music and all of that. Like, that's cool, but in the end, that's a cop-out, because what white folks do, when they get inspired for some shit, they go all in. You know what I'm saying? And they support. Madonna was seen at an Oscar where her whole hand was red stringed up. You know what I'm saying? Like a cat. So they go hard. And they revere the people who do that. And I'm not saying that people don't do that. I'm just saying that we have the ability to have our own mainstream that's not mainstream like anything that's there, that's like theirs. We have the ability to create our version of whatever we want to incorporate with them without necessarily having to do that. All we need is a certain amount of people who are in with them to put up a certain amount of bread. Because whether it's fiat or not, I don't know one more right now that'll turn down $1. And you shouldn't. Because even if you ain't going to use it based upon your own political convictions or whatever, you could give it to somebody who needs it. Like when I was growing up, regardless of how my relationship with my mother now, she taught me certain shit. When you get a pair of shoes, you give a pair of shoes away. When you eat, you wash the dish. Every weekend you clean the bathroom. You know what I'm saying? Like, civilization, that's MGP. But she was a Christian and Eastern Star who had her own agenda. She was showing me all that. You know what I'm saying? But again, I love my mother, and I know she loves me, but she don't like me, and that's okay. A lot of our parents don't like us. A lot of us don't like our kids. A lot of our friends don't. A lot of your friends don't like you. A lot of your best friends hate you. You know what I'm saying? That's how crazy it is. If you've known these niggas for years, these niggas will go all out for you, but these niggas hate you. A friendship is based on the nigga money, and vice versa. Yes, a rose by any other name is still it. You know what I mean? Smells just as sweet. Therefore, again, it's you, and you perceive it. How are you going to deal with it? How personal are you going to take it? I don't want to take things so personal that it blocks me. And when you're in relationships, it'll teach you that you have to break through things. But at the same time, it's a two-way street. So at some point, we just stop listening to each other. And when you do acknowledge politically and historically, it resulted in a breakdown in families and created a culture of handoffs, pickups, and custodial visits primary parents and mortgage-backed security, child support, no matter or not it's paying for the kid or whatever. It's not paying child support unless it's paying support. Arrears, right? This is what Western or Anglo society wanted. This is what we agreed to, or what our ancestors agreed to when they agreed to equality. They agreed to this form of management. Because remember, the system is not created for people who function well. It's created to keep people in line. Its purpose is to preserve order. That's the purpose of any government, to preserve order and to promote continuity that will lead to an institution that will then birth the nation. So if the operating program, the operating system of the government is to preserve, control, and predict or whatever order, then that's what it's going to do, regardless of who is running, regardless of who is in control of it. That's because that's what it says. The only way it could not be is if you totally got rid of all of it. And who's going to do that? They've already done it. They've already destroyed their own government. The government has destroyed itself. But it, like any human, because it was given life, is blaming the people. And yet, some of the people are to blame. Yet the people who are the most to blame don't get really blamed at all and are kind of laughed at and even supported. Look at the ritual of this whole baby thing with your man. So you have a color named Jason Blue, and then you have a daughter named Blue. You know what I mean? The Blue Lodge is blue, but you're not a Mason, you're a Mason. Okay, great. But what I'm saying is that he is an archetype now where they have now scapegoated this thing. They scapegoated him to be the face of the Illuminati. When everybody think of Illuminati, now who they think of? Jay-Z. How did that happen? How did it go from being Jay-Z from the Rockefellers and these niggas to him? And how does he cool with being the face of that? That's a setup. That's a patsy. No, that's a great business. You see what I'm saying? And you're right. Well, that's the whole thing. Like, everybody's right. So it's all about who is going to admit that they're wrong. Nobody. The way you tell somebody is going to tell you the truth is if they're willing to tell you the truth without you asking. The way I know people, a lot of people do crimes like Facebook. Perfect example of a military operation at play. Certain people who are shady will have pictures where you can peep, but you can't send them nothing unless they're a friend. You got to fly to be a friend first. You know what I'm saying? Whereas some people are updating every 5 minutes. That's a compulsion. You understand? That's a compulsion. Same as if you have what they call restless need disorder, where you just keep shaking your knee, or Tourette. All of these mind control, NK leftover diseases that somebody wound up getting from some sort of trauma and then made it go dormant. Then this person married somebody and passed that trait or trigger off to the kid, and the next thing happens. So they're now, again, because they're fixated with the 80s and the Saturn influence, working to bring about this whole nuclear thing. So the nuclear age, again, this is something that if it was to happen, you'd have a whole generation of desolation. Radiation levels would then have to go down in order to survive. This then creates at least 2 other outbreaks like zombie apocalypse and all these others that are written about in the Bible and other instances of ancient correspondence. Yet none of these things are essentially predicated to bring about the upliftment. That's the one thing that you have been seeing about it, talk a little bit more, did uplifting aspect of it. Only when I speak that, like, book of Eli. It turned out he was fine, and it was the Bible. Yet the continuity of our species is something that we don't get looked at as a functionary aspect of living. Right? Because we are not, or don't surround ourselves with imagery of a glorious past and a limitless future. We are preoccupied. We have to deal with the everyday grind of the eternal now, which is where everything is. Yet if we had to weigh them both, in my opinion, the past is like belief. The future is like hope. You know? Yet we're in the age of knowing, knowledge, which on some levels is compassion. They're compassionate. Which is why you see a preponderance of men doing this type of speaking and work. Because it's a very Saturnian thing to dedicate yourself to isolating in a certain area and cutting people off or cutting people out to be able to do the work. But people don't always understand energetically what it takes to do that. So time is something that is a luxury that has to be equated on both ends. Yet it is subject to our perception of it. Some people are more sensitive to time than others. Western society functions on specifically Anglo-American time. But that time essentially is predicated upon who or what type of job you got. But the reason why time is the issue or why you got to punch in and all that is because they can only pay you for the time that you're there, not for the work that you do while you're there. Yeah. Tiers.mp3 Radio.
Hello?
Tiers.mp3 Radio.
Hello?
Hey. What's up, Jim? Can you hear me? Please, can you hear me, brother? Right. Right. Well, right. That. No, another thing too, going back to that thinking of the shift, that is a ritual indicative of that company. I think that that's really what it is. I sort of I have okay. What about now? Okay, I think it's just dealing with all of this stuff, trying to or striving to maintain it in a manner that is consistent, but also is relevant to where we need to go individually. And I think, like all people and all things, that in striving to not take things as personal as things are, I'm striving to get got to a point where I'm really seeing that this thing. What about now? What about now? What about now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I'm speaking into this thing as loud as I can. I'm not going to yell. But I want everybody to hear what I'm saying. Well, at least. Okay, great. It's great. I think all the communication and a lot of the breakdowns and all of the stuff that's going on, at least with us, is the fact that we're starting to break out of the confines of our immediate surroundings. And I'm starting to feel like we definitely got to upgrade our situation based upon that, not just us as a people. I'm talking about me as an individual, like, in dealing with this subtle intrigue in my own personal life, even though it's even at a distance, because I'm not even, like, as involved in it as I may sound. I'm just reporting what I'm seeing going down with it and the parallels and how it's reflecting the things that I'm actually researching about not only the past but the actual political strata as it exists right now. And the weight of all of that sometimes can be very heavy. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not like I can do this every day. It's not like we have a venue or forum where we can give, where I can get daily reports or whatever. And I do, but me personally, I can't do that every day. Like, that's a little hectic. But at the same time, we are not in 24-hour days anymore. We're not in the old structure that they still telling people exists. We're not in any of that. We can't get everything done today. 9 to 5 now is not 9 to 5. Now is not how 9 to 5 was 10 years ago. It's actually gotten more tedious, and you're getting less out of it, where it's not as stable as it was perceived. Now, at any moment, people could be on the street. At one point, it was not like that. At one point, you could depend on aspects of the society and the world to work. It's not doing that. Therefore, it's about how we're going to work, what we're going to do. And we have started to become recognized. You know what I'm saying? For doing it. That's wonderful. Yet, like I said, when you're dealing with things like metaphysics, you still got to have a degree of competence to deal with that, due to the fact that now you have a backlash with people trying to make it like metaphysical people or people who are on that are crazy. And it's being promoted or being done by people who look like us. And some of it's cool, it's funny, but again, they use that as a military exercise. They say, oh, they could do it to each other. Let's do it to them now. Let's make our version of it. And they do. But the difference is their version of it, they find a way to profit. They make money off of our misery and our pain. And they act like they're not doing that. And they act like the world, even though it's structured like that, doesn't have to be like that for us. But if it wasn't, would we all be comfortable, or would they be as comfortable in the position they are? No. Who is they? They is anybody that's occupying a position that's trying to control how you perceive your life as you're living. Meaning anybody that is forcing an ideology on you that is not conducive to your culture, your way of life. What is your I self Lord and master? If Islam is I self Lord and master, or I self Lord am master, then how is your Islam? How are you representing that in the form of the arm, leg, arm, head? How is that manifesting in your culture? How does Islam work where you live? The same way Islam is different in Turkey as it is in Saudi Arabia, it's different in the way it is in Saudi Arabia than it is in Yemen. Yet it's still Islam, and it's still a bastardized version of the Philistine Islam created by, like I said, Musa Limiyat 200 years after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. For specifically the Philistine people who became Arabic in 1914. So as we were talking last week, before we close out, we had got into the Arabic influence. We didn't get into the Arabic Nazi connection influence. It was the influence of which the Arabic Nazis then fomented themselves into the African state, in which the African Nazis started taking over. This basically took place at the beginning of when Leopold took over the Congo. And when he instituted the psychological mind control things with the feathers, the dark males cutting up the women and all of that, all of them people, slaves, were from other nations that he just put feathers on. These people were not the Moors like you today reading about Moor science, wearing a feather and then decide to go fight this white man and kill people. That's not what was going on. These are people taken from other regions, mind controlled themselves, killed, wiped out themselves, promoting a agenda to produce rubber, the same rubber that they're using in the cell phones and the microchips and the tires and everything else, the same rubber they were doing this for back then. So Leopold was a primary financier and partner of the King of Prussia in the Austro-Hungarian Empire that was starting to go on a decline due to the bankruptcy that was being enforced on it by Rothschild and them. So at the killing of Archduke Ferdinand, who was stepping out and away from them and was actually trying to put the country back in a republic stance while trying to get Leopold to ease up all of the crazy African stuff going on in Uganda, he basically was outed and cited for assassination. Once they killed him, that started the war. In Africa now, the African tribes were now being wrangled by the British to be used as foot soldiers, infantrymen, to lock down the inner African peninsula through Mali and everything. But there was a Moor named Alam al-Hadith, peace be upon him, and he inspired so many original people in Africa that he basically fought the British to the standstill. There's a movie called Four Feathers you can read about him in that. He's also in a book called World's Greatest Men of Color. He's also in Servants of Allah, a couple of other books. But this man basically fought them to the standstill of Mahdi. So at the time, they needed to find a way to break the Mahdi up. So between, let's say, 1881 and 1899, you see the British and them pushing into the interior of Africa trying to lock shit down. This is when Edgar Rice Burroughs was with them, and he writes and comes up with the whole Tarzan thing based upon the jungles of North America, South America. You know, bridging both the history of it in there, and then Tarzan being the white man, the apes being reflective of the black man, which is why it was played out again in the movie Planet of the Apes, where you get Charlton Heston dressed as Tarzan, and the apes being Moors, just as Moors. Same situation. So essentially, they created a unifying field, of people who were working against this idea of the dark continent, and the dark continent being the place for people to explore and find ways to discover the ancient lost cities and all this other type of stuff, when really it's an allegory of going within the black woman and finding a way back into the inner earth, meaning her as well as the inner earth itself. Once this was one of the passages was discovered in Tibet, they switched focus. So this was around the end of the Opium Wars with the British India Company, and now we get into the rise, like I said, of the Mahdi and them. After the Turks and them fall between 1900 and 1914, they then create another system in which the Arabs have state power, but they rule the states in control, and then they started to hire German, the same Germans that taught them the interrogation torture techniques was the ones that they flew in to teach them about desert warfare. Teach the white people about desert warfare. White people then took that back to Germany and wherever else and then set up the German Africa Company, or the Africa Corps. So by the 40s, the Africa Corps is infused with Arabs who have been trained by Nazis, who are now using Nazi propaganda and are translating it into a tribal doctrine. So the Arabs are talking to the Africans and teaching them the philosophy in terms of ways of fight, you know what I'm saying, for their own freedom, allegedly, against the Germans, but against the Americans or whatever, but at the same time teaching them that, let's say, you Igbo and he Yoruba, that means that, he's more like this and you're more like that. So then this gets infused in the soldiers. So then after the conflict, they start to take this shit out on each other because they've already been Nazilized. And now that they've been Nazilized, they start to act out genocide. Why do you think all these people just resort to genocide like that? Because that's the next level of programming. Once they get in, they install a fake regime. They kill the old regime, install a fake regime, establish the political outside ploy, accept the foreign gifts, and then lock the people down, and then start sequestering the intellectuals and the artists and stuff, start killing them, locking them down. And the next thing they do is have like 20 years or whatever of terror with the people, and then they are accepted into NATO or something like that. So this Nazi behavior was amplified in people by the time of people like Idi Amin and these Africans. It was also played out back in the days with the Moors, like people like Moors like Al-Mansur in the late 1300s, claiming that he had the right to use Christian slaves to lock down the mosque in Kemet because those Moors over there was practicing Islam, a self-born master, not Orthodox Islam put forth by the Sunnis. Again, the false Islam that was brought by the ones who were following the one made in their image, not the one who brought the knowledge to him. You know what I'm saying? That's why they went against certain things. Gaddafi and them, you have certain people who want to say that the moon goddess or the feminine aspect of the God of Allah, that Allah was always masculine, that's fine. You know what I'm saying? If that's what you want to say and believe, come up with documentation to support that. But I could come up with documentation to say the opposite. You know what I'm saying? She was also Isis Uranium. The Sangli Assad is made in the form of a vagina, not a penis. When men do the circumambulation, they get to that level of the apex where they put their head in it. They don't put their mouth on a phallus. They put their mouth in the symbolic opening of a woman. But if this Kaaba was supposed to represent Allah, he's a man, then what he's saying. That's why the Sunnis had to form their own version and create and adopt the Nazi practices to instill it in the root chakra of their people. And then through the successive wars after colonization, you have World War II. After World War II, you have the whole internal genocidal wars in Africa. And then it goes from that to the famines and the tragedies and the deforestation and all of that. Now it's to the point where Africa is like the world's child that you see on that commercial at night with that white guy who's saying send like $10 so you can be with it, so you can take care of them. That's essentially what it is. So these Africans, some of them being trained, a lot of them being trained by that, also by the 50s into 60s, had already had political ties were being set up by the Western powers as puppet governments to extort the resources out of the people and push the progression of the country back 100 years, which is the process or practice of British and Western intelligence agencies, to always put the societal progress of the people in the society, the scientists, whatever, back a generation. So these were set up, and these things created different political parties that spilled over into the New World. You know, in Africa, you had things like the Mau Mau, who was putting in work on the British. Work. So much work that they actually had to make an alliance with the United States to help them deal with that, of which they became partners. And that's what reinstated the intelligence relationship with them. People like Patrice Lumumba, De La Puta, and other people from the continent, Cheikh Anta Diop, and a lot of these other original men started to put this out. Dr. Ben, everybody started to put this out, started to recognize the underlying aspect. But a lot of these guys were also involved with some of these groups and some of these orders, and had to do so to be ordered to get the knowledge to give it to some of the people. That's how it was back then. And this influence of Nazi behavior in Africa became the thing that led to the opposition of what it is now, that would endpoint have to deal and accept that Africans now cannot take care of their children. So we, as the gods of Africa, Hollywood or whatever, is going to come in there and be protected by the military, because Africa was now caught up in AFRICOM, being run by a Boule general that would act as the police action for the African continent. But really, it's really just an intelligence front for them to be able to funnel different operations through in the African continent. This is all connected to the separation of Eritrea and Ethiopia, what Selassie was trying to do in that. You know, people have what they want to say about him, but look at some political things that was going on. You know, people saying he's trying to force language on people. I don't know personally if that's what he's trying to do, but what it seemed like politically he was doing was trying to unify everybody with a language, and then use that language that was already respected in the Ethiopian as the basis, the eternal language, to then fight for the ascendancy of us as representatives of Abyssinia. Ethiopia is what the Anglo-Saxons called it, not to recognize Abyssinia. So him and John Nichols were the ones who torpedoed the whole League of Nations thing, which then led to them being targeted for death as well as genocidal austerity, where the militias and the warlords were set up to kill the people with Nazi practices. This is where the war with the Tutsis, the Hutus, and the Tutsis came from, when they started poisoning the water. when they started promoting that water is going to run out for the people, whatever, because what they're talking about is the real water that they want to start to supply for people to the fake water. So they could grow small in lumps and stuff. But these people live around waterfalls. So it's just like some of the Jews in the concentration camp. It's like at what point were they going to stand up and not go? Now they're trying to make movies like Defiance and Inglourious Basterds and these movies or whatever where to make themselves look tough like this. Tough Jews that, fought back and all this other shit. But that's like saying we fighting back now. Like some of us are. But the level of the fight has now become a spiritual thing primarily, and it's now played out in the physical aspect. So, it's a give and take. But hopefully it didn't bring anybody down tonight with anything that's going on. But like I said, certain things that are reflective of the fact to show you again that this is real, man. Don't matter what you know or how much you're building on and whatever, life will still be real. And it will still throw things at you where you got to figure out how much to invest in. The outcome of what's going to happen is already written. And the purpose is to block inheritance. So symbolically, that's what's happening to all of us. You understand what I'm saying? So it's happening to me, it's happening to all of us. The inheritance, that means that it's also reflective of what's happening with the American government in terms of them blocking the initial foundation of our original self. But at the same time, there's a light in the tunnel because at least we got a documentation that says now that we've been recognized by a bunch of different states. So who knows in 5 years where the more is going to be. However, if we don't preserve it and build on it from that by using that as a precept or pretense, same way they do, to say that this is what we naturally are. We're not a part of whatever it is you're a part of. Yet you still owe us based upon compound interest. That can be worked out, but we got to get on the same page to do that. But again, it's a start. All praises due to Allah. Bless those who, voted for it and those that didn't. Because in the end, every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess who is Lord. So, like I said, y'all, it's just really about how you see it and what it is you choose to entertain, and know that what you see is still going on is what is really going on. In that regards to what somebody's telling you got to know what you think. Because it's both ways. And everybody's entitled to think what they want about everybody else, regardless of who or what. And we do not have to agree about that. And we do not have to conform to being tolerant. You don't have to be tolerant. You don't have to tolerate certain shit because you live in society. That's not true. That's like saying you have to tolerate a guy letting his dog crap in front of your door every day because you live in a society in which people have dogs who do that. You're not required to tolerate that. You could voice your opinion about that. You could be wrong or right, but if you don't voice it and you don't say anything about it, you're wrong. You can't say nothing. It's not like voting. You already know that that's rigged. You already know that don't exist. To do it are people who benefit from it. It ain't people who do. Ain't no black people telling you to vote. The black people that are telling you to vote is black people that's already been voted in. So they're not really there on the same level you there. Those black people who believe in the system enough to alter their physical appearance. That's what I'm saying. If you are altering your physical appearance and you're not a spy, and you're not some sort of So you're not some sort of actor. If you're doing that to achieve a certain job or make someone feel less threatened, like that's the new shit. Whenever anybody wants to go mainstream, they start out hood and then they start wearing the nerd glasses. And the nerd glasses take them into the different features, and then from the different features they go mainstream. Because the nerd glasses make you look less threatening. And the idea is to make us as black men always dancing, always dunking the ball, always rapping, always going to jail, always selling drugs, always beating up black women. That's where they want us. But not necessarily black Africans. They want them destitute, poor, stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Then they want Arabs, all of them with bombs strapped to them and people blown up. And they want Jews to all have money, right? Now, these are generalizations I'm speaking of, but they're true. It's true. It's true. I'm not making it up. It's real. You know what I'm saying? So please do the knowledge. And holler at us on Friday. We're going to have a special guest. And anybody wants to come in on our class we have coming up this week on the beginning class for metaphysics, as well as the common sense of metaphysics and post-natural consciousness, please email us at houseofl@hotmail.com. Also, you can hit me up at houseofl@hotmail.com. Also, check out www.sagasag.com, as well as www.Aseer.com. And thank you guys for participating and bearing with me and allowing me to feel comfortable enough to keep it real and, to be real and express what's really going on, man. And not take it like I'm trying to, influence anybody's view or thing or whatever. I always strive or want to be open enough to accept people with whatever science or whatever you're coming from. I probably got a handle on it, so I could build with you. You know what I'm saying? So I'm never out there with you can't talk. You know what I mean? And unless it's proven that can't happen. So until then, we'll see you guys on Friday, and I thank you guys for the participation and always supporting us and being there for us. Respect, love, and praises to the original black woman. Please don't take what I was saying about terms and all of that offensively, because I'm really not talking about everybody. I'm talking about people who are afflicted with that form of insecurity and have not reconciled it. So as well as anybody else, it's not my intention to make this, salacious or anything like that. It's really about always keeping it 100. So with that, we say peace. And everybody in the chat, thank you for holding me down and letting me know about the levels of the working on getting a new jack. So with that, peace to you, Hotel. And inshallah, I'll see you on Wednesday. Peace. Friday. Peace.